Captain stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching through the viewport as the massive Galactic Council fleet assembled in formation around them. Her ship looked pathetic compared to the sleek war vessels of the other species. The Defiance was barely 200 meters long, its hull from countless repairs, held together by human stubbornness and spare parts that shouldn't work but somehow did. "Captain, we're receiving transmission from the flagship," reported Lieutenant from the communications station. "Put it through," said, straightening her worn uniform. The holographic display flickered to life, showing Commander Aura of the Empire. The reptilian being's eyes glowed with disdain as he looked at the human captain. "Human," Aura hissed, "your presence here is a mistake. The Horde has destroyed entire star systems. Your primitive vessel will only get in our way." Kept her expression neutral. "We're here under Galactic Council authorization. Humanity has every right to participate in this operation." "Rights?" Aura's laugh was like grinding glass. "Your species barely discovered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. The Empire has been fighting wars since before your world had written language. Stand aside and let the real warriors handle this." The transmission ended abruptly. Around the bridge, crew exchanged glances. They were used to this treatment. Since humanity joined the Galactic Council 10 years ago, they had been seen as the weak link, the new kids who didn't belong. "Captain," Chief Engineer Martinez called from his station, "the other ships are moving into attack formation. Should we follow?" Studied the tactical display. The fleet consisted of 12 massive ships from 6 different species. They brought their kilometer-long dreadnoughts, armed with plasma cannons that could melt through solid rock. They contributed their swarm carriers, each one capable of deploying thousands of fighter drones. The energy beings known as the had vessels that could phase through matter and strike from impossible angles. And then there was the Defiance, with its outdated missile systems and kinetic weapons that the other species considered laughably primitive. "Yes, take us in," ordered, "but keep us at the rear of the formation." "Aye, Captain." The fleet moved toward the contested system, where the Horde had established a foothold. Intelligence reports indicated the enemy had at least 20 ships, including several of their massive bioships that could regenerate damage and spawn smaller attack vessels. As they approached the system's edge, Commander Aura's voice crackled over the fleet communication channel. "All vessels, prepare for engagement. Remember, they are not to be underestimated. They have consumed 17 civilizations." The enemy fleet appeared on sensors as they rounded the system's outer planet. The ships were grotesque things, looking more like massive sea creatures than traditional vessels. Their hulls pulsed with organic life, and tentacle-like appendages writhed along their surfaces. "Fleet command to all vessels," came the voice of Admiral or from the lead carrier. "Begin attack run. Primary targets are the biocarriers." The Galactic Council fleet surged forward, weapons blazing. Plasma beams and energy lances cut through space while swarms of fighters engaged the enemy. The Defiance hung back, its crew watching the spectacular light show unfold before them. "Captain," Ensign Park called from the sensor station, "I'm reading something strange. The formation is shifting." Moved to look at the tactical display. The enemy ships were indeed moving, but not in retreat. They were forming a complex pattern, their bioships linking together with organic tethers. "What are they doing?" wondered aloud. The answer came in the form of a massive energy pulse that erupted from the connected vessels. The wave washed over the advancing galactic fleet, and one by one, their ships began to lose power. "It's some kind of electromagnetic pulse," Chief Martinez reported. "But it's biological in nature. It's disrupting all electronic systems." On the main screen, they watched in horror as the pride of the galactic fleet drifted helplessly through space. The dreadnoughts, the carriers, the phase ships, all of them were dead in space. "Why aren't we affected?" Park asked. Martinez was already running diagnostics. "Our systems are more primitive. The pulse was designed to disrupt advanced energy-based technology. Our mechanical and chemical systems are immune." Commander Aura's panicked voice filled the communication channel. "Emergency! All vessels are without power. Repeat, we are dead in space." The fleet began moving toward the disabled ships like predators approaching helpless prey, their bioweapons charged with deadly energy. Stared at the tactical display, her mind racing. The entire galactic fleet was defenseless, and the only ship still functional was her beaten-up human vessel that everyone had written off as worthless. "Captain," said quietly, "orders." The weight of the moment settled on shoulders. Humanity had always been seen as weak, primitive, unworthy of respect. But now, they were the only thing standing between the Horde and the complete destruction of the galactic fleet. "All stations, battle alert," commanded. "Martinez, give me everything the engines have got. Park, I want targeting solutions on those bioships. Open a channel to the fleet." "Channel open, Captain." "Galactic Fleet, this is Captain of the UES Defiance. We are moving to engage the enemy. Prepare for rescue operations once we clear a path." The silence that followed was deafening. Then Ara's voice came through, filled with disbelief. "Human, you cannot face 20 enemy ships alone. Your vessel is inadequate for such combat." Smiled grimly. "Commander, you're about to learn what inadequate really means. Defiance, attack, run." The small human ship accelerated toward the fleet, its primitive engines leaving a bright trail against the black of space. To the disabled crews watching from their darkened bridges, it looked like a single spark flying toward a pack of dragons. But had grown up on stories of human history, of David and Goliath, of impossible victories against overwhelming odds. Humanity had always been underestimated, and they had always proven their enemies wrong. The bioships turned toward this unexpected threat, their organic weapons beginning to glow with deadly power. They had faced the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy and consumed them all. What challenge could one primitive human vessel possibly pose? They were about to find out. "Target the lead biocarrier," ordered. "Fire when ready." The Defiance shuddered as its missile tubes opened and spat death toward the enemy. The primitive kinetic weapons that the Galactic Council had mocked were about to show their true worth against an enemy that had grown complacent facing energy-based attacks. The battle for the galaxy's future had begun, and humanity was finally ready to show the universe what they were truly capable of. The first salvo of kinetic missiles slammed into the lead biocarrier with devastating effect. The alien vessel, accustomed to deflecting energy weapons with its adaptive bioshields, had no defense against solid projectiles moving at tremendous velocity. The missiles punched through its living hull like bullets through flesh, causing massive internal damage. The bioship writhed in apparent pain, its organic systems struggling to seal the wounds. Green ichor leaked from the holes, forming crystalline clouds in the vacuum of space. "Direct hit," Ensign Park shouted from her station. "The biocarrier is showing massive structural damage." But the fleet was already responding. The remaining 19 ships turned toward the Defiance, their organic weapons glowing with malevolent energy. Bioplasma bolts streaked through space, forcing Lieutenant to throw the ship into evasive maneuvers. "Captain, we've got multiple target locks," reported, sweat beading on his forehead as he fought to keep them alive. "They're coming at us from all angles." Studied the tactical display, her mind working at lightning speed. They were fast, but they were thinking like predators, not tacticians. They wanted to surround and overwhelm their prey, which meant they were bunching together. "Martinez, prepare the torpedo spread. Pattern Delta 7, she ordered. "Captain, that's our entire torpedo complement," the engineer warned. "If this doesn't work." "It'll work," said with grim confidence. "Park, I need targeting solutions on the 3 smallest bioships, the ones clustering near the disabled carrier." "Targeting solutions locked, Captain." The Defiance rolled through space, dodging bioplasma bolts that seared past close enough to heat the hull plating. Piloting was keeping them alive, but barely. The ship's shields flared under near misses, and sparks flew from overloaded systems. "Fire," commanded. 12 torpedoes launched simultaneously from the human ship's tubes. But these weren't ordinary torpedoes. Chief Martinez had modified them with a trick he'd learned during humanity's brief but brutal civil war decades earlier. Each torpedo carried a cluster warhead that would split into dozens of smaller kinetic penetrators just before impact. They saw the torpedo spread coming and began evasive maneuvers, their bioships twisting through space with fluid grace. But they were still thinking in terms of energy weapons that could be dodged or deflected. The torpedoes reached optimal distance and split apart. Suddenly, 12 projectiles became nearly 300 smaller ones, creating a cloud of death that no amount of maneuvering could avoid. The three targeted bioships disappeared in a storm of kinetic impacts. Their organic hulls, evolved to regenerate from energy damage, simply disintegrated under the multiple high-velocity impacts. In seconds, three vessels became expanding clouds of organic debris. The disabled galactic fleet watched in stunned silence as the small human ship, the vessel they had all dismissed as primitive and weak, destroyed three enemy ships in a single devastating attack. Commander Ara's voice crackled over the communication channel, filled with disbelief. Impossible! How did they penetrate the bioshields? The defenses are designed for energy weapons, came a new voice over the channel. Captain recognized the synthetic tones of an energy being. The human kinetic weapons are surprisingly effective. But they were adapting quickly. The remaining 17 ships began spreading out, making it harder to target multiple vessels at once. Worse, the larger biocarriers were launching smaller attack craft, organic fighters that swarmed toward the Defiance like angry wasps. Incoming fighters, Park reported, at least 50 of them. Point defense systems online, called out, his hands flying over the weapon's controls. But we don't have enough firepower to stop them all. Watched the swarm approaching and felt her blood run cold. The fighters were small and fast, designed to overwhelm defensive systems through sheer numbers. The Defiance could destroy some of them, but the rest would tear her ship apart. Then she remembered something from the intelligence briefings. The fighters were organic constructs, essentially living beings controlled by the mother ships through biological signals. They were fast and deadly, but they had one weakness that no one had thought to exploit. "Martinez," she called to the engine room, "can you overload our electromagnetic field generators?" "Captain, that could fry every electronic system on the ship." "Can you do it or not?" A pause, yes, but only for a few seconds. After that, we'll be as dead as the rest of the fleet. "Do it," said, using her first name in his concern. "What are you thinking?" "The fighters are controlled by bioelectric signals. If we create a massive electromagnetic pulse at close range, it should disrupt their neural pathways." "Should?" Park asked nervously. "It'll work," said. "It has to work." The swarm of organic fighters closed the distance rapidly, their bioweapons charging for the kill. On the bridge of the disabled dreadnought, Commander Ara watched with a mixture of horror and fascination as the human ship prepared to make what appeared to be a suicidal last stand. "Now," shouted. Chief Martinez triggered the overload from engineering, and every electromagnetic field generator on the Defiance discharged at once. The ship became the center of a massive magnetic pulse that rippled outward through space in all directions. The effect on the fighters was immediate and devastating. Their bioelectric control systems scrambled, and the living craft began spinning helplessly through space, their neural pathways completely disrupted. Within seconds, 50 enemy fighters had been reduced to drifting biological debris. But the pulse had also knocked out most of the Defiance's own systems. The lights went out, gravity failed, and the ship went silent except for the hiss of the life support systems running on emergency power. "Damage report," called out in the darkness. Emergency lighting flickered on, casting red shadows across the bridge. "Main power offline," Martinez's voice came through the communication system. "Weapons systems down, engines at 15%, we're running on backup power only." Through the viewport, could see the remaining ships regrouping. They had learned to respect the human vessel, but with its systems damaged, it was now vulnerable. "Captain," Park said quietly, "they're charging weapons, all of them." 17 bioships turned toward the crippled human vessel, their organic weapons glowing with concentrated death. The Defiance had fought brilliantly, but it appeared the battle was over. That's when the unexpected happened. The disabled galactic fleet began to come back online. "This is Admiral Orr," came the voice of the commander. "All vessels, the electromagnetic pulse has reset our systems. We are regaining power." One by one, the ships of the galactic fleet flickered back to life. The dreadnought's engines began to glow, the carriers launched fresh fighter squadrons, and the vessels began to phase back into normal space. Commander Ara's voice filled the communication channel, and for the first time it carried a note of respect. "UES Defiance, this is the flagship. We are moving to assist. Your courage will not be forgotten." But they weren't finished. Seeing the galactic fleet coming back online, they began to retreat toward the system's outer edge, clearly planning to escape and regroup for another attack. If they reached jump distance, they would disappear into the void, only to return with reinforcements. "They're running," reported as the ship's system slowly came back online. "But they're going to escape." Studied the tactical display with growing frustration. The Defiance was too damaged to pursue, and the other ships were still recovering their systems. They would escape, and this entire battle would be meaningless. Unless... She looked at the weapons display and saw that while most systems were offline, one torpedo tube was still functional. They had exactly one torpedo left, and it was their last chance to stop the enemy from escaping. "Park, can you get me a targeting solution on the lead bioship?" "At this range, Captain, it's nearly impossible. They're almost at the edge of our weapons envelope." "Can you do it or not?" Park worked frantically at her console, sweat beading on her forehead. I think so, but it's a 1 in a million shot and we only have one torpedo." Felt the weight of command settle on her shoulders once again. This single shot would determine whether the Horde escaped to fight another day, or whether humanity would finally prove they belonged among the galaxy's defenders. "Take the shot," she ordered. The Defiance shuddered as its last torpedo launched into space, racing toward the fleeing fleet on what seemed like an impossible intercept course. Every eye on every ship watched the small projectile streak through the darkness toward its distant target. The fate of the galaxy hung on a single human weapon, fired by a ship that everyone had written off as worthless. The torpedo streaked through space for what felt like an eternity, its path curving slightly as it adjusted course toward the fleeing command ship. On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain held her breath, knowing that everything depended on this single shot. The fleet was almost at jump distance when the torpedo reached its target. The projectile slammed into the rear section of the massive bioship with tremendous force, but instead of causing immediate destruction, something unexpected happened. Chief Martinez had made one final modification to their last torpedo. Instead of a kinetic warhead, he had loaded it with a biological agent that humanity had developed during their early encounters with hostile alien life forms. The agent was designed to disrupt organic neural networks, and when it spread through the bioship's living systems, it caused a cascade failure. The lead vessel suddenly stopped accelerating. Its bioelectric systems began firing randomly, sending confused signals to the rest of the fleet. In moments, what had been an organized retreat became chaos as the other bioships received contradictory commands. "The torpedo worked," Ensign Park shouted. "The bioship's command network is down." But the real surprise came when the damaged vessel began transmitting something completely unexpected. Instead of weapons fire or retreat signals, it started broadcasting the biological control codes for the entire fleet. "Captain," reported with excitement, "our computers are intercepting command protocols. It looks like the bioagent is causing their ship to dump all its data." Couldn't believe what she was seeing. In trying to disrupt one ship, they had accidentally gained access to the entire network. Every ship in the enemy fleet was now receiving conflicting orders as their command structure collapsed. "All galactic vessels," Admiral Orr's voice came over the communication channel, "the enemy fleet is in disarray. Move in and finish them." The recovered galactic fleet surged forward, their weapons blazing. The ships, cut off from their command network and unable to coordinate their defenses, fell one by one to the combined firepower of 6 different species. Within minutes, the threat that had terrorized the galaxy for decades was reduced to floating debris. The aftermath of the battle brought something Captain had never experienced before: respect. Commander Ara was the first to request permission to board the Defiance. When he materialized in the ship's small transport bay, the proud warrior did something that shocked everyone present. He removed his ceremonial armor and placed it at its feet. "Captain," he said, his voice carrying none of its earlier arrogance, "I owe you an apology. The Empire has spent centuries believing that advanced technology and superior firepower were the only measures of a warrior's worth. Today, you showed us that courage, ingenuity, and tactical brilliance matter far more." Other commanders followed. Admiral Orr presented with a crystal containing the genetic memory of their greatest victories, saying that her name would be added to their warrior chronicles. The energy beings, who rarely interacted with physical species, manifested themselves as pure light to offer their formal acknowledgement of humanity's tactical superiority. But perhaps the most meaningful moment came when Captain received a private communication from Earth Command. Captain, Admiral Sarah appeared on the screen. The entire Galactic Council has requested an emergency session. They want to discuss humanity's role in galactic defense. It seems our primitive military thinking is exactly what they need. Over the following weeks, as the Defiance underwent repairs at the Council's primary shipyard, learned just how completely the battle had changed humanity's status in the galaxy. The other species had relied on their advanced technology for so long that they had forgotten the fundamentals of warfare. They had become predictable, their tactics stale and overly dependent on superior firepower. Humanity, forced to fight with inferior technology, had developed what the galaxy now called adaptive warfare. Where other species saw problems to be solved with bigger weapons, humans saw puzzles to be solved with creativity. Where others relied on brute force, humans used cunning and misdirection. The Galactic Council's emergency session was unlike anything in the organization's history. Instead of humanity being lectured about their inadequacies, they were asked to share their military knowledge with the entire galaxy. The Horde had defeated us because we had become complacent, admitted Council Leader K of the Ancient Dominion. Our technology made us lazy. We forgot that the mind of a warrior is more important than the weapon in their hand. The Council voted unanimously to establish the Terran Military Academy, where officers from all member species would learn human combat doctrine. They also authorized the construction of a new class of warships based on human designs, combining advanced alien technology with human tactical thinking. But for Captain, the greatest honor came in a simple request from Admiral. The Admiral said during a private conversation, "The Council wants you to command the new Joint Species Fleet. They're calling it the Galactic Defense Force, and they want a human to lead it." Standing on the bridge of the newly commissioned GDF flagship Terra's Pride, Captain looked out at the most diverse fleet in galactic history. Human ships flew alongside dreadnoughts, carriers worked with phase vessels, and crews from a dozen different species served together under a unified command. The ship's communication system crackled to life, and a familiar voice filled the bridge. It was Commander Aura, now serving as second in command. "Captain, we're receiving reports of hostile activity in the Outer Rim. Unknown vessels attacking civilian shipping lanes." Smiled grimly. There would always be new threats, new challenges for the galaxy to face. But now they would face them together, with humanity's tactical innovation combined with the advanced technology and varied strengths of their allies. "All ships," commanded, "prepare for jump. Let's go show whoever this is what the Galactic Defense Force can do." The fleet began moving in perfect formation, each ship complementing the others in a dance of organized power that would have been impossible before humanity showed them the way. The Defiance, now serving as personal command ship, took point position despite being the smallest and least advanced vessel in the fleet. Because the galaxy had finally learned that sometimes the weakest-looking weapon can be the deadliest of all. Years later, when historians wrote about the war, they would call it the day humanity proved their worth to the galaxy. But those who were there, who saw the small human ship stand alone against impossible odds, knew the truth. It wasn't the day humanity proved they belonged among the stars. It was the day the stars proved they were worthy of humanity. The legend of the Defiance spread to every corner of the galaxy, carried by traders, diplomats, and warriors who had witnessed the impossible. Children of a dozen different species grew up hearing the story of the little ship that saved the galaxy, and how the species everyone had dismissed as weak and primitive became the teachers and protectors of them all. And in the depths of space, on peaceful merchant vessels and mighty warships alike, crews would sometimes whisper the motto that had spread from Earth to every inhabited world: "Never underestimate the humans." Captain had started the battle as the commander of the most mocked ship in the fleet. She ended it as the most respected military leader in galactic history, proving once and for all that humanity's greatest weapon was never their technology. It was their refusal to accept defeat, their ability to find victory in the most impossible circumstances, and their determination to protect those who could not protect themselves. The galaxy was a safer place because of it, and humanity had finally found their place among the stars not as the weakest member of the Council, but as its strongest protectors.